The first batch of 5 Rafale fighter jets took off from France for India nearly 4 years after the two countries inked an intergovernmental agreement to supply 36 of the multi-role jets to the Indian Air Force under a 59 crore rupee deal. The aircraft flew out from Merinac airbase in French port city of Bordeaux and will cover a distance of nearly 7,000 kilometers with air-to-air refuelling and a single stop in the UAE before arriving at Ambala airbase on Wednesday. That's tomorrow. First, let's go across to our National Affairs editor, Srinjoy Chowdhury, who's joining me live on the broadcast. Srinjoy, good morning. This is definitely the much-awaited day, really, when the first batch of these fighter jets arrives in India tomorrow.
Yes, as you already know, 10 planes have been given by Dassault to the Indian Air Force. 5 are coming tomorrow, and 5 will stay in France for training of pilots and also technical support staff, mostly engineers. That will happen over a period of time. The next planes will probably come in October, November. Now, these 5 that are coming with 6 pilots are already in the Gulf, and they will be setting out tomorrow, keeping in mind the weather and everything else. And what we are hearing is that it's a 4-hour journey. So if they leave at about 8 o'clock in the morning, which is the expected time of departure, they are likely to be here at 1:30, between 1:30 and 2:15 is what we are hearing. And this is, of course, keeping in mind India is an hour and a half before the Gulf. So between 1:30 to 2:15 is the expected time of arrival of the first 5 planes to Ambala. This, no doubt, will be a great boost for the Indian Air Force, for the Indian Armed Forces, because these will be the first of the 36 that will arrive. After that, we will have to see what the government and the Air Force decides, whether they want 36 more, as has been offered by Dassault, or whether they look for something else.
All right, Srinjoy, stay with me. In fact, our consulting editor, Maruf Raza, is also joining me on the broadcast. And before I take up a question with Maruf, I want to play out a report filed by Atar Khan, who's explaining the salient features of this jet. Take a look.
But let's also see what makes the Rafale the ultimate beast for the IAF. Now, this is the Brahmastra for the Indian Air Force we're talking about. What makes it special? The range of this aircraft, 3,700 kilometers. It's a big boost to India's air dominance, India's very own Beauty and the Beast. Now, these 5 jets will land in India on the 29th of July. Load carrying capacity is around 9,500 kgs. That's perhaps best in class, much more than any other in its class as well. What else is special about Rafale? The weapon Scalp. Now, this is a precision long-range air-to-air missile. It can be used really with BVR technology. What is BVR technology? Beyond visual range. What it can do really is fire at the enemy without being in their own counter range. We also understand that this particular missile has a range of over 300 kilometers. Now, what are the modifications for India? India did ask for modifications. Remember, it has helmet-mounted sights and targeting capability system as well. It has the ability to take off from high-altitude bases like the ones we have in Ladakh, like the ones we have in Arunachal Pradesh. It also has a towed decoy system to thwart incoming attack, and also comes with French industrial support for the next 50 years. That is why the Rafale India is getting are so special and gives us a clear edge.
All right, so there you go, Atar. Just explain to us the salient features of the jet, which is on its way to India, and tomorrow afternoon we should get the first batch. Let me introduce our guests once again to our viewers. Maruf Raza is our consulting editor, and Wing Commander Praful Bakshi, who is a former fighter pilot, is also joining us on this broadcast. Good morning to both of you. Wing Commander Praful Bakshi, let me begin with you, sir. First, if you can help us understand the way these Rafale jets and their joining Indian Air Force would boost our capabilities.
It's no doubt that it's a much awaited event, actually. We've been waiting for 4 years for the Rafale to come. The talk has been going on. The question is, Indian Air Force, the fighter fleet, is depleting. There is no doubt. We require, as for me, 45 to 50 squadrons, but they on the book they say it should be 42 or something. Is coming down below 28, and if we don't wake up now, it'll come down to 22 in 3 years. The question is, this was very much required, this Rafale, because we wanted 125 or similar aircraft. Now that they're here, whatever the number they are there, wherever they will be a force multiplier. Why they will be? Because the capability of the aircraft and the capability of the weapon system. Let me talk in terms of the capability of the aircraft first. The aircraft not only is highly maneuverable, its rate of climb and rate of turn, which is required in combat, is extremely very good, better than J-20. What the Chinese are now showing off, their copied F-22, very poor copy. Rafale has got super cruise, and also slight little stealth capability. Right. J-20 is also super cruise, but their super cruise does not last very long. What super cruise is, I'll just tell you. Super cruise is when the aircraft has to go supersonic, pilot opens the afterburner. The rate of fuel becomes 3 to 4 times more. So you can only fly with afterburner for a very little time. Especially they save it for the combat. In case of super cruise, you fly supersonic without afterburner. So that is what the beauty of this aircraft. The radar cross-section is very small. And when you are recovering from a dive at high altitude, the aircraft mushes. While rocket attack or gun attack, all aircraft mush. At sea level, the mush is very little, but at high altitude, the mush can be 1,500 feet more.
Right. So Wing Commander Bakshi, now that you've explained the technical advantage that we gain with the coming of Rafale fighter jet in Indian Air Force, I want to understand from Maruf. Maruf, you know, we talk a lot about the deterrence power of a nuclear weapon. What about the deterrence power of such, such effective aircrafts in our Air Force? Would that also perhaps put the opponent to some level of thinking before even imagining to take any sort of throw any sort of challenge to our Air Force?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Preeti. Good morning to you. You see, deterrence in principle is about deterring the enemy from becoming adventurous, which means that the enemy will not scale up the operations in the hope of trying to gain an advantage against you. After all, conflicts are fought for some advantage which you give back to your political leadership to negotiate from a position of strength. So therefore, the adversaries' air forces, whether it's Pakistan with its updated F-16s, and I'm told that the Rafale can comfortably take on 2 to 3 F-16s in an air-to-air combat situation, and of course, many more lesser capability aircrafts. When China is concerned and when they are deployed on the LAC, and should matters escalate or should we wish to put pressure on China, the Chinese Air Force is largely made up of relatively mediocre capability aircrafts. They have numbers, but the capability, and that's where Wing Commander Bakshi was referring to force multipliers, which means one aircraft can help you accomplish what 4 to 5 enemy aircrafts cannot help you accomplish. So Chinese aircrafts are relatively not as good as in the Indian Air Force. The second big advantage the IAF has is that we will be operating most of our fighters from lesser altitudes. Therefore, high altitude operations by Chinese restrict the capability of their lesser capable aircrafts from taking in more fuel for longer range or more payload, that is weapon systems, for being more effective in the battlefield. And the most important thing about the Rafale is it's an omni-role aircraft. People keep talking of 4.5 generations. Now, for most people can't understand what is 3rd generation, 4th generation, 5th generation. I mean, 5th generation aircraft, as we hear, is possibly the F-35 that the Americans are making. And we were going in for that arrangement with the Russians, but I believe we've called off that joint project with the Russians. So 4.5 generations, but more importantly, it is omni-role, which means, as Wing Commander Bakshi said, it can fly from short takeoff and landing in high altitude, smaller airfields like Daulat Beg Old and other airfields all along the Chinese front, or even in the northeast where the Rafales are eventually also going to be deployed.
Right.
But they also have a maritime role. They can hit targets in the sea with exocet missiles, which are lethal, and they can also operate out of aircraft carriers.
So is that the reason why Wing Commander Bakshi, many experts believe it to be the Brahmastra for Indian Air Force, and also one of the important features of the aircraft that I was reading about was the fact that you do not necessarily have to enter hostile territory because it provides us with the power to attack from long range. Even from Chandigarh or Ambala, you can target stationary targets in Pakistan and even China.
Exactly. Now, you remember Air Chief Marshal Dhanwar made a statement that had Wing Commander Abhinandan been in the cockpit of a Rafale, things would have been different. What he was trying to say is that the cockpit radar's capability is such that he could have picked up 8 F-16s, which are actually threatening that time. And he doesn't have to go to a hot pursuit into the enemy territory. He could have actually shot them down. I'll tell you one more thing. Suppose you are Rafale is escorting 4 Jaguars on a low-level strike. Now, Jaguar's cockpit radar may not be good, but the Rafale cockpit radar is so good that he will keep the threat and keep monitoring the threats. So the job will be done by the 4 Jaguars and the 5th Rafale itself, and with the escort done. So he has multiplied the efforts. That is what I'm trying to say, that this aircraft capability is such that we now actually will require lesser aircraft if we use them judiciously and in a very operational manner. There is no doubt about it. But question is, we must transfer the technology and do the R&D. Let us not repeat our old mistakes. I always never fail to tell this, because we have always made this mistake. To please the other party, we don't ask for the...
Maruf wants to make a point too. Yeah, Maruf, go ahead.
See, Wing Commander Bakshi has again raised an important point, and I said that yesterday as well, that, the deals that we are going in as per the DPP process by which we purchase weapons platforms, virtually all of them have TOT in it, which is transfer of technology. The transfer of technology doesn't happen overnight. Even if you buy the weapon system, they will not come with the whole blueprint of it and lay it in front of our aviation experts and say, okay, now you make the aircraft. The relationship has to go on for a few years, and that is why it has been reported that alongside these 5 aircrafts and the pilots which are bringing them, there are going to be, pilots are ours, but they're going to be a technical team of French experts who are following us into India. They'll probably arrive also tomorrow. And they will ensure the battle worthiness of these aircrafts, plus they will ensure that we quickly get on with the act of manufacturing them here. One of the reasons why the Rafale deal was held up for so many years with the MOD was because, and I have accessed those papers in the past, that the then Raksha Mantri, Mr. Antony, was of the view that the HAL should be made into a big player in this whole exercise. Now, HAL, its hands are full. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, they do assemble a lot of Sukhoi aircrafts. They're even doing it now. They've made a first-rate light combat aircraft, the Tejas, which the Air Force is also buying to meet its depleted requirements, as again has been brought out by the worthy Wing Commander Bakshi. But equally important is that the French were not comfortable with the HAL being their partner here. This has been reported, amongst other things, by even The Economist, because the French felt that the speed at which they can assemble these aircrafts and the skill with which they need to put it together did not, and the platforms for putting it together quickly did not exist in our limiting facilities. So transfer of technology will take place, but an equally important aspect is that the aircraft deal has about a 5-year to 30-year maintenance cycle, which is built into the cost.
Okay, there's plenty more to discuss related to this acquisition. I know Wing Commander Bakshi also wants to once again come in the conversation, but gentlemen, I have to take a very quick break here. We'll be back with this top focus story in just a bit. Stay with us on Times Now.